Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, retirement specialist and six-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
Well, welcome, folks, to the Worry-Free Retirement. And yes, I'm that little man in the sweater vest, retirement planning specialist and fiduciary, Tony Walker. And in case you're just now joining us, we are in part 3 of a brand new 4-part series entitled The 4D's That Can Wreck Your Retirement. Now, 2 weeks ago, we covered divorce. Last week, we covered death. And this week, we are covering part 3 called decline. Now, by the way, to watch any of our past episodes, I would invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just go to youtube.com and type in Tony Walker Financial so you can watch all of the content that we air on this show each week. Okay, so if anyone can speak to the reality of our third D, what can wreck your retirement, that being the issue of declining health in retirement, well, quite frankly, it's me. Not only as an advisor who personally sees 20 to 30 savers each week, I witnessed more and more of these clients starting to show declining health, whether it be physical, mental, or sometimes both. But it's not only that. You see, some 40 years ago, also I witnessed my own father, who at the ripe young age of 57 was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, a disease that in just a few short years thereafter would take his life while ending up in a nursing home. For those of you who have watched loved ones decline in health or currently are in the throes of watching them decline in health before your very eyes, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There might be some watching this show on TV, listening on the radio, or watching us on YouTube who are concerned about this issue, not just for others, but also for yourselves, which is why today we're going to cover the third D in that thing called retirement that can actually wreck your retirement and hopefully give you some possibilities of how you can deal with it. Because let's face it, folks, if death doesn't get you first, decline probably will. So let's jump right into this most difficult subject matter facing retirees was one of the thousands of articles that I found on the internet regarding the issue of declining health, and I'm going to kind of dive into what this article is talking about. I love the article's headline. It basically says the 10 most common chronic conditions on older adults and what we face. We'll kind of get into those a little bit, but I think it's the fact that this is a real issue. As Americans are living longer and longer, there's more and more things that can creep into retirement that can affect your health. What I noticed from this is 94.9% of adults age 60 and older have at least one of these conditions, listen, while 78% have 2 or more. Folks, this is a big deal, and depending on your age, whether it's yourself or maybe you're dealing with parents or loved ones who are hitting this, assuming you're dealing with this at all, declining health, okay, we understand how this works, and we understand also from a financial standpoint how the assets you own will be affected both during your lifetime and how to distribute these assets at your death. In fact, just the other day, I had in my office 3 different beneficiaries of a client who had recently passed away. And as they shared with me and my staff the assets they had outside of the assets we handled for this loved one who had passed, it reminded me just how confusing it is for savers to try to keep straight all of these assets, and more importantly, what will go through probate and what will not. So using their example by changing the names to protect the innocent, I'm going to share with you a simple graphic that I've used for years that I think is going to help you at least think through more clearly what assets you have. And while you can, before your health declines, really think through the documents you're going to need and what you need to put in place to make sure these assets pass to the beneficiaries you want with the least amount of hassle. So let's take a look at these 4 boxes. So basically, folks, if you boil this down, there are only 4 types of ways that property can be owned. The first is solely owned. The second is jointly held. The third is trust or contract. And the fourth is beneficiary. Now, immediately, most people say, well, Tony, I don't need to worry about all this because I've got a will. Well, let me describe this, and before Derek's at the helm here with the graphics, before you show any arrows here, Derek, let me make sure I'm covering this. I'll use an example. A solely owned asset happens a lot. Let's say you have a parent that's maybe they're widowed, they're single now, they're in their 80s. They may still own a car, and that car is usually solely owned on the title in their name. That would be an example. Then you have jointly held. Well, let's say their spouse has passed away. Well, there wasn't any problems settling the house because more than likely the other spouse was a survivor on the deed. So that's why it wasn't any hassle at the first death. Now your mom in this example owns the house, okay? Then we have trust or contract. That would be like a living trust or maybe even an LLC or maybe literally a contract like a note receivable or something. That would be another way you could add assets. Now this last category is actually the most, common asset in terms of how you hold assets, and this would be by beneficiary. So life insurance passes by beneficiary, IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, annuities pass by beneficiary. Now, why is this important? Okay, so let's say you don't think it's any big deal. You've been to an attorney, you've gotten a will. You say, Tony, I've got all this worked out, man. I don't need to worry about how all these assets pass. I've got my wife, or I've got my husband or partner or child is named in the beneficiary through my will. Now let's go to this and see what actually goes through the will. Solely owned assets certainly go through the will. What about jointly held assets? No. In this case, if you were still alive and you left it to your spouse, if she's on the deed or he's on the deed, they're going to get it. Even if you put your children on the deed as survivor, that will bypass the will. What about trust or contract? Nope, it's going to go to the spouse or whoever's named as the beneficiary of the trust. That wouldn't go through the will. And here's the biggie. Beneficiary designations do not go through the will. So you might be saying, well, what's the point of all this, Tony? The point is, folks, if you are working with somebody, maybe a family member that's in declining health, or you yourself are worried about this down the road, you've got to get this stuff shored up. And here's where we can help at Tony Walker Financial. While we are not attorneys, what we do in our process, our 5-step process, is we're going to go through all of your assets, make sure we understand a clear vision of what you want to happen to these assets, both while you're alive and when you die. And then we're going to make sure everything's categorized and organized so that we have everything done on our end. And then also when you go to your attorney to get everything ironed out through your wills and trust, this will already be organized. So if you don't have someone like this that's taking the time and the necessary details to make sure this is correct, why don't you do this right now? We can set up a free time to talk by phone. We call it the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. It's real easy to do. Just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Or you can call us anytime at 877-499-9255. Well, speaking of documents and heading over to your attorney for some legal stuff, what are the main documents that I see that most savers need to have in place before they hit this issue of declining health? I'm Tony Walker. Stay tuned. I'll be right back.
On your TV show and in your commercials, you warn savers about the year 2025, possibly eroding their retirement savings. What is the significance of 2025?
Well, in 2025, some of the lowest tax rates in the history of this country will, let me repeat, they will expire. And while nobody can predict what Congress is going to do when they expire, most experts, including myself, feel that the easiest thing to do is for Congress to just simply let them roll back to the 2017 rates, which means for those with at least $250,000 in retirement assets, you're going to be paying more in taxes, which is why I encourage people to contact us before 2025. In other words, get a game plan in place now to see how we can reduce taxes now versus waiting for them to go up later.
With these current low tax rates expiring in 2025, what can savers do now to prepare for them possibly going up in the future?
Well, first and foremost, you have to have a written game plan in place before rushing to strategies pitched by the financial world to save on taxes. But there's lots of options we can explore with savers, things like Roth conversions. There's something called qualified charitable distributions or QCDs, accelerating distributions now by staying in lower tax brackets, and even gifting money to family members now rather than waiting to leave it to them after you die. So we can assist savers in thinking through their options now rather than putting off those tax rates and potentially higher rates in the future.
Welcome back to Fun Facts. I'm Trey Juergens, full-time fiduciary here in the Louisville office.
And I'm Wes Walker, fiduciary in Louisville and Lexington.
So today, Wes, we're going to talk about mutual funds versus ETFs. And they're very similar in some ways, but there's a few things, especially in retirement planning, that we like them for. Number one, flexibility. Number two, the cost. And number three, liquidity. Could you speak a little bit to those three things?
Sure. So mutual funds and ETFs are very similar in nature. All that they do is they just track a basket of stocks or bonds. So, they might be a broad-based index like the S&P 500, or they might have more active kind of mutual funds and ETFs, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But at its bare minimum, all it is just something that tracks an index or a basket of other stocks and bonds. So the differences between them, though, is that mutual funds trade at the end of the day. So they're very good for someone who's got a long time horizon. They're just going to put the money in and leave it for a few years or something like that. They're not worried about trading it during the day. ETFs, on the other hand, can be traded during the day. So if you were doing day trading or something like that, you could get in, get out, but they offer a lot of liquidity. And that's why sometimes we'll use those for people's portfolios, if we needed to get out real quickly. Not that we're doing a lot of day trading, but it is good to have that flexibility.
Sure. Well, that sounds good. Thanks, Wes.
Tired of the financial world chasing after your money? Dinner, seminar invitations, annoying pop-up ads on your computer from out-of-state advisors? It all adds up to confusion. There is a better way. Meet in person with nationally recognized retirement specialist Tony Walker. Tony's personal one-on-one approach has helped thousands of savers worry less about money, and best of all, Tony's right in our own backyard. Don't leave your retirement to chance. Make the short drive to meet in person with Tony now. To get started, simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. We hope you've enjoyed the segments we've done on this series of the 4D's that can wreck your retirement. In case you're just now joining us, we are dealing with health decline. That could be mental or physical, but I'm sure some of you can relate to this topic quite a bit. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, most people I meet with, really when I say, what are your plans for your estate? Do you have wills in place? Most people admit no, or they'll say, well, Tony, yeah, we do, but I think they're like 20 or 30 years old. So we call that being outdated. So I'm assuming a lot of you sitting there either do not have the proper legal documents in place to deal with declining health and eventually death, or they're outdated and you really need to get back with an attorney. Keep in mind what I'm going to share with you. We are not attorneys. Now, we lay out everything financially, but you have to go to your attorney to make sure that the documents you're putting in place are right for you. Again, we are not attorneys. But let's take a look at the main documents I see that I think every saver should consider having. First of all is a simple will. Now, folks, I'm not opposed to trusts, but I think trusts can get very complicated. In my opinion, many of you are taking out a lot of these trusts. They're unnecessary. Earlier in the program, we talked about the 4 types of assets that are passed. If you've got a home and let's say $20,000 in the bank and a $500,000 401k, quite frankly, in my opinion, you don't need a trust unless there's some extenuating circumstances with children or grandchildren or something like that. You're just making things too complicated, but you do need a simple will to make sure if there's something you forgot, we make sure we know who's going to get what if you forgot to name a beneficiary or something like that. So you need a simple will. Number 2, healthcare-related documents. This is a biggie. An attorney can fill you in on this, but there's more and more documents that you might have to have in place should you or a loved one go into the hospital before medical attention can be given to you under various circumstances. These healthcare-related documents will help spell that out so people will know whether they should resuscitate you or all these things that can come up. Medical conditions worsen. So again, you might want to figure out who's going to be assigned to make those tough decisions related to your health. A living will. I hate to say this, I just call this a pull the plug on your will. Many people worried about someone sustaining their life past a period of time where they don't want to be alive. But if you're hooked up to a ventilator or something and that's not what you want, but there's nothing in writing, more than likely somebody's not going to make that call and just unplug the cord, so to speak. So I'd highly suggest you consider a living will as well. And finally, boy, this is an important document. I can't tell you how important this is anymore. It's called a durable power of attorney. It needs to be durable, meaning it takes advantage of the fact that you become disabled, medically unable to act on your behalf, cognitively impaired, or there is somebody that, especially people in retirement as they get a little older, they just want them to have the ability to handle financial issues on their behalf. At Tony Walker Financial, we highly recommend all of our clients have somebody appointed that has a durable power of appointment. So again, if they did call in, they could help and we could provide financial information. This even accounts for spouses. Depending on accounts, how they're set up, if a spouse calls in and wants to know information on another spouse's account, in many cases, we cannot disclose that information unless we have a durable power of attorney. Now, there's a caveat. These things can be kind of dangerous because remember, you are giving somebody that power. So you might want to have more than one person that can check the other person for this power. I've seen a lot of crazy things happen in the past 40 years. So to spell out the potential, drama that can ensue with or without a durable power of attorney, I thought we would turn it over to our own Mandy Houchins in our Bowling Green office, who works with durable powers of attorney and assists our clients all the time.
Hello, I am Mandy Houchins, and I am in charge of the service department here at Tony Walker Financial. One of the most recent concerns we have for our clients is obtaining a power of attorney or POA document. A power of attorney authorizes someone else to handle certain matters, such as finances or healthcare, on your behalf. If a power of attorney is durable, it remains in effect, even if you become incapacitated for any reason. We highly recommend you consult an attorney for further information before establishing a power of attorney. And as always, if we can be of help, feel free to reach out to us here at Tony Walker Financial.
Thank you so much, Mandy. So, folks, if we can be of help to you, why don't you take advantage of logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call us anytime at 877-499-9255. We'll be right back.
The individuals in this interview are uncompensated clients at the time of filming. Their opinions expressed were provided to Worry-Free Productions for use as an advertisement by Tony Walker Financial. Please refer to Form CRS and Form ADV Part 2A Disclosure Brochure for information regarding the advisory services offered by Tony Walker Financial.
Our client spotlight today shines brightly on Ron and Diana Foster, and welcome to the studios here at Worry-Free Productions. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Tony.
Tell us a little bit about the process you went through in finding an advisor and the number of years. Actually, you said you've kind of been considering this.
We found you on the television, watched it a couple times, and we found ourselves kind of learning as we go.
What was it about Tony Walker Financial that finally put the decision in your hands to say, let's do this?
Who we talked to before wasn't really a good fit. Coming here, this is our home.
Yeah. Gave us the tools and things to help us understand the process and become comfortable with this choice. And Ron said it best, it was a good fit because we felt like our investment money, our hard-earned dollar, could be put into different buckets that were more secure for us in the future.
Would you describe, if you don't mind, I'm very proud of the staff here, as you know, the feelings you've had in terms of working with the staff and the ease of the staff? Any comments about that so far?
From the time we walked in the door, everyone here, it was an easy process for us to come in and get to know everybody. And when we left, we talked about it. It was an easy choice to make. We were still getting the tools necessary to understand the process, and that was sent home with us as well. So when we decided this is a good fit, Ron said, this is where I feel comfortable in making sure my money for the future is secure.
Well, good. Well, we're glad to have you on board and look forward, hopefully, to many years of serving your retirement needs. So thank you, Fosters.
Thank you very much, Tony.
You're welcome.
Looking for an advisor you can trust? Schedule your free phone call with Tony at TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call 1-877-499-9255.
Tired of the roller coaster ride of the stock market? Let Tony Walker show you how to smooth out the ride with your money. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and let's get started.
Did you realize that if you have more than $250,000 in retirement assets, the government could tax as much as 40% of it when you go to take it out? And with current tax rates set to expire in 2025, the taxes you will owe on your 401k could climb even higher. Don't wait until 2025 to see how much Uncle Sam will take of your money. Get a game plan by logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
And now it's time for Tony in the Trenches. Hey everyone, thank you for joining us today. I am America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Ornder, and I've got our next Tony in the trenches right here, so let's get to it. This TNT comes to us from Bobby in Mount Washington. Tony, I know you're a big fan of annuities. With that said, I recently began helping my mother-in-law better understand her investments and came across an annuity she recently purchased for $200,000 from all people, her tax preparer. After looking over the contract, it appears that she cannot take all of her money out without a huge penalty for 10 years. When I told her this, she said she became mad as a hornet and said she was never told about the 10-year surrender penalties. Does she have any options with your firm to handle this annuity and get her out of it without penalty?
Now, you got to remember something, folks. I love annuities. I've been selling annuities for years, but I'm one of those folks that also says, let the buyer beware. Why? Because there's so many different types of annuities, and worse yet, there's so many people out there peddling annuities, which is a problem because a lot of people don't understand how annuities work, or sometimes they don't tell people about the darn surrender charges. I run into this every week. People come into me, they've purchased an annuity from an annuity peddler, and then there they are, they're sitting, they want out of this annuity, and we can't move it unless they're willing to incur huge penalties. Especially, if you'll notice this graphic here. Now, again, nothing wrong with bonus annuities, but you have to understand something. If you buy an annuity that has a bonus attached to it, and you decide to bail out of that annuity before the surrender term is over, the penalties are even worse. So here's what I would suggest, folks. Please, before you just rush out and buy an annuity, the first thing you can do is download this guide I wrote. It's called Annuities Made Easy. It's absolutely free. You can log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, TonyWalkerFinancial.com. You're going to hit on that download section, and you can download that for free. If the internet's not your thing and you'd like to read this booklet, but you'd like a hard copy, you can simply call our offices at 877-499-9255 and request a hard copy of Annuities Made Easy. Again, we will need your name and address, and we can get that to you. If you're sitting there right now and you go, Tony, I'm already thinking about an annuity. I know I want one. I just don't know what type. Well, let's set up a time to talk. Just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and let's get started. Is the person you're getting ready to turn over your money to a fiduciary? In other words, is that person required by law to work in your best interest? Well, if not, why not? My name is Tony Walker, and as a fiduciary, I promise to work in your best interest. So before you turn over your life savings to anyone, make sure they're a fiduciary. For a second opinion on your finances, give us a call at 877-499-9255. Are you nearing retirement, and does your employer offer you a pension? Do you realize that with interest rates going up, the value of your pension will be going down by as much as a 25% loss in value? Don't let this kind of money get away from you. Take action now before your lump sum pension loses value. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or give us a call at 877-499-9255. Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. Tony Walker here, and we are dealing with a very difficult topic for, it could be you or loved ones, aging parents, etc., etc. It's the issue of declining health. It's the third D in our 4D's that can wreck your retirement. Before I share with you something that came up recently in a case study, I'll go into the details in a minute. As I mentioned earlier in the show, my father passed away back in the 90s of Alzheimer's. He was only 64 at the time. Spent his last couple of years in a nursing home. Very, very sad situation. So this stuff really hits home to me. Now, these are just some statistics that we drug off Alzheimer's Association's website, but it is interesting. And again, some of you may relate to this as we go through some of these statistics. According to the Alzheimer's figures they have, 1 in 3 older adults die with Alzheimer's or some sort of other dementia. That's pretty high. Nearly 7 million Americans currently are living with Alzheimer's. And let's see something else here. It says over 11 million Americans provide, this is a biggie, unpaid care for other people with Alzheimer's or dementia. That might be you. I see that a lot. I talked to a gentleman the other day whose wife is declining. Well, he can't just go off and leave all the time and just tear off all over Louisville running errands. He's got to have somebody to come in and watch her. If he doesn't have friend or family, he has to pay for that, and that's very expensive. So a lot of you, I get it, are having to take care of your loved ones, and unfortunately there's no money in it. And there's a lot of your time. I get it. Let me see if there's a bunch of them here. Back to caregivers again. 3 in 5 dementia caregivers say less stress and more peace of mind are potential benefits of having a care navigator. So, I guess if you could find somebody out there to help, I'm not familiar. That might be for another show, Aaron and Derek. Maybe make a note of that. Care navigator. I've never heard that term. But anyway, okay, so let's get down to the practicalities of what we do on a daily basis. How do we help people, either the adult children who are dealing with parents with dementia or cognitive impairment, or that couple that comes in? We had a couple in the last couple of months. This is the same things happen. Both cases, they were in their 70s. Both cases, ironically, the husbands recognized, listen closely, the husbands recognized they were slipping. So that's you out there. If you're a husband or wife, male, female, partner, doesn't matter. Let me give you some advice. If you feel like you are truly slipping, please get with somebody, whether it's us or another retirement planning firm or somebody, and start going over the details of your finances. Folks, if you know you're slipping, there's a good chance you could slip really fast. And if you wait too long, if you get to a point where cognitively you can't make rational decisions, it may be difficult to make changes and decisions in your planning. I know we've talked about this before on the show. So this is why it's so important to get with a retirement planning specialist now, someone like Tony Walker Financial, where we can lay the game plan out so everybody sees it on paper, we all understand it, and we can adjust the game plan depending on how your health holds up. So in this example, we'll take one of the gentlemen that said, we got to get this set up. The problem with both of these men, they handled all the finances, and they recognized, and their wives admitted, that if something were to happen to them, the wives had no idea how to deal with the investments. They didn't have a trusted advisor, and they knew they were going to have to go it alone, and they were worried what to do with the money should the husband eventually become cognitively impaired where they couldn't handle it. So in both cases, what we proposed was what we call getting everything under one roof. And what that means is Tony Walker Financial would be their advisor. And in the perfect world, we can't do this all the time, and in the perfect world, what we did was on both cases, we moved their entire portfolios, their 401ks, their after-tax monies, their savings, everything over to Tony Walker Financial. And we have so many options available. I mean, we can get mutual funds, stocks, bonds, bank products, annuities. But the beauty is we are now in control of these finances. Anything they need, we're going to be able to link to their checking account. They're going to still keep their checking account in their house and physical assets, of course. But that way they only have one thing to keep up, their checking account, and then the accounts that we have that we're going to watch and monitor closely with my 19 full-time employees who are charged with keeping up with this stuff. So in both cases, each of those persons said the same thing. They felt so relieved that everything was under one roof. We now can do all their tax calculations, their distributions. If they decide they need money out for whatever reason, they want to take a trip, fix up their home, they know who to call to run the numbers accurately to make sure that they stay on track. Or if they have to do some things that are out of the norm, at least they're going to know how it's going to affect their income in the future. So that might be you right now, either yourself or you've got a loved one, but you know that they are cognitively declining. And you're concerned that if you wait too long, it may be difficult to make any changes in their situation and you could have a mess on your hands. Don't put off the inevitable, folks. Be realistic about where things are going. Health problems, of physical or mental, it doesn't matter. Do this. Take advantage of something we call the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call, where you can call our offices, talk to me in person. If I think we can help, we're then going to meet in person. Again, no cost or obligation. We can meet at either our Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. Again, what do you have to lose? Nothing, but you've got a whole lot to gain from working with somebody like Tony Walker Financial. So to take advantage of this free offer, log on right now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Just click on that Let's Get Started button. Or if the internet's not your thing, give us a call anytime at 877-499-9255. Well, that's all the time we have for today. We hope you've enjoyed today's program. We look forward to seeing you next week on the Worry-Free Retirement and talking to you then. But between now and then, if all else fails, you remember, you be worry-free and make it a good one.